Welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid Burke, and it is 11:11. It is the November 11th, and it is a Monday. And as you can see, it's a little darker in this room. The sun is up, but we did finally have some rain after weeks of literally no rain. Probably almost the entire month of October, we had no rain, or maybe just a spritzing here and there. I'm hoping that this gets rid of the lantern. Oh, good morning, Alex. I'm hoping that this gets rid of the lanternfly goop that ended up on my windows. Good morning, Melissa. And Melissa, I think we are getting some more people for our event that we're doing on December the 1st. It seems like I had a couple of clients who have told me that one of them I know registered yesterday, and I think there might be another one. Good morning. Happy to hear we got some rain. Yes, because there were fires popping up. And good morning, Sam, or good afternoon, Sam. I'll have to do that. And yeah, we're a little gloomy this morning. But it's worth it because we've definitely needed the rain. Good morning, Joanne. Yay! Yes, I know. Yeah, it's yeah, we're having some people. Melissa and I had a little touch of sunshine, which is actually her. Also, if you look that up on Google, you will get to her website. If you want to book we're doing readings together. I posted it on my stories, and I know Melissa's been very good about posting it on hers. And good morning, Suda. But I'm doing 15-minute readings in the town of Chester, New Jersey on December 1st. And I'm doing it in Melissa's space on 50 Main Street, Chester. And we're going to, I'll do a 15-minute reading, and she will do an aura photograph for whoever is, she's offering a free aura photograph, which is actually a hugely generous kind of an offer, because the aura photos by themselves, there's the equipment, and then there's the film and the things that that's all that stuff costs, and she's giving that away for free. So that's really it's really an exceptionally good deal. So anybody who is in New Jersey and wants to go, like I said, I know of 3 people so far who I think are registering or registered. So yeah, so I'm going to be there from 11 to 4 on December the 1st, which is a Sunday. So just if anybody in Jersey watches this, and I think most people on here, I think there's only a couple of us who are usually from New Jersey who are on right now, but who are from New Jersey. But anybody who watches this afterwards might want to pick up with that. And I actually need to upload a whole bunch of these morning coffees. I have not done tarot readings this weekend because I've been too busy. Sounds fun. Planning on going. Yes, I know you were one of the 3 who said you were going to go, so that's going to be awesome. And I thought I was kind of this morning. I've just been I've got to get a whole bunch of things organized. I did do a new podcast for Katonia over the weekend, which is a rather interesting one on masculine, feminine energy and relationship, and it's on the Selkies. It's on the Seal women of folklore. Joanne says it's a misty, mountain, rainy day here. Yep. Well, we're kind of in the same boat this morning. It is rather misty. Not really raining this morning, but we were raining all last night. So my sleep was not awesome last night. But I'm going to try to. I have some things. Obviously, those of you who are in the ISFM. I love Joanne's idea of doing t-shirts, and I might even do mugs, so I'm going to put those in my spring shop, and I'll put a link to that for people who want to get that. Good morning. So we've got, so I'm going to be doing that this morning. The people also who are in the ISFM, I'm going to be sending out the links for Max's class and seminar, which are the last 2 for the fall series. And if anybody still wants to audit those, you still can go on the website and register to audit. It's Wednesday night, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. And of course, recordings are available, all of them. So if you go to the, I think it literally says registration and recordings. I think if you actually click on that link, I forget what I call stuff now. And then the very bottom, there's a form. If somebody wants to, order recordings, you can order them there. And I will send the links to those recordings to anybody. Again, obviously, if you're already in the ISFM, you already get the recordings. And I haven't uploaded my Hecate seminar yet, so I'm not. I'm a little behind on uploads. I did create the podcast stuff. That's all going to go up this morning, and I do my noon live stream over on Katonia as well. So this morning I'll be kind of, it is Moon in Capricorn today, so I'm excited for him. I like his voice. Yeah, Max has a great speaking voice, and he also has a great singing voice too. He has an album out. I think his latest album is called "Songs to Drink Whiskey To." So something like that. But and I know we were kind of discussing the production on that one because it was very highly produced, and the voice on there. I mean, he's a great songwriter, but the songs don't. I'm like, it doesn't sound like your voice. And we were kind of having this conversation. He got nervous and he was calling his producer, going, "How much production did you put on this thing?" He's like, "Oh no, I didn't put very much." And I don't know. Anyway, I want to follow. I want to kind of. I have some curiosity about how overproduced that they did on his vocal, but that's the whole separate conversation that I'm having somewhere else. So. But nonetheless, Max, and I've heard Max sing live. When we went to grad school, he would always do events like in the coffee shops and stuff. He would be like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be there and I'm going to be performing." So a group of us from Drew would go over. His friends would go over and see him. And yeah, he has a really great voice. He has a great singing voice and he has a great speaking voice as well. And I know he's been very nervous about doing this one, making sure that he feels like he's up to the standard of everybody else. And I'm like, don't be ridiculous. Of course you're up to the standard of everybody else. Because if I thought that he was mediocre, I probably wouldn't even ask him, you know what I mean? Or if I just thought it was a topic that he couldn't adequately speak on. And I think it's good to have a masculine perspective as well. And because I think he is somebody who can, but I think he has a strong, understanding of the feminine symbolism in literature and so forth. I've always felt that he's somebody who really kind of, again, he has his own, ideas and things, but he gets it in kind of a big way. And he's very good at facilitating people too. So he's a person, if you are stuck on thinking about what you want to write or doing anything like that, good morning. It's then good speaking voice is key for me, or I'm sure I'll see the rest of that. The people who don't. I understand that if somebody's talking in a monotone all the time or whatever, it's really hard to, or I'm sound asleep. There it is. Okay. Well, fair enough. And of course, these are in the evening. So, and really, it's funny when I say that the class is over, it's pretty much my bedtime. I usually wait an hour for the cloud recordings. Well, I don't do cloud recordings with these. I do these local. And then what I do is I post them because I don't, because when you record them to the cloud, you eventually have to, you're basically storing them on Zoom's server, and I don't want to do that. I want them stored on my own. So that way I have control over the material if I want to take it up or down, and I don't want it to get lost, especially if you're going to allow people to purchase the recordings. You need to have the recordings. So, So interesting. Okay, so when I got up this morning, so there's a lot of stuff coming up, and the Dream Workshop. The Dream Workshop I posted for November 23rd. I'm just going to keep mentioning that. That is on Saturday, November, I'm pretty sure that's November 23rd. 23rd or 24th, I think it's the 23rd. And so that is, that's been posted to Transition Life Coaching. It's literally the only event on the event list right now because I know we want to put a tarot class together. People have been asking for that. So I want to try to get some of all that organized this morning. This is a day, Monday and Tuesday are days I don't take appointments. So really they're supposed to be days off. But they're supposed to be days off, but they're also, but I also those end up being kind of admin days. They're days that I end up doing the other stuff that I don't do on other days. And yes, I do have to catch up on tarot videos. I have not done Libra through Pisces yet. So those will probably come out by Tuesday, which is usually the first day of the reading on the Liminal Tarot channel. So, yes, I will probably have that. No rest for the wicked, no. And speaking of such things, I spent this weekend, even though I had a terrible headache it seems the days I had Rahani, I had terrible headaches. Yesterday, though, I did have another Rahani client. And I also had, I was also kind of compelled, even though I was really busy trying to keep up with other stuff, it was like, nope, you got to keep cleaning out. You got to keep getting rid of stuff. So I have bags of stuff. I've been cleaning my basement out. I've been piling stuff up. I have all this stuff. I feel bad. I have stuff from the last time I had a cat. I had a cat box that was used once, but the SPCA won't take it as a donation because they said, oh no, it has to be completely brand new. It can't even be used once, which I think is ridiculous because now you're throwing out something that's it was perfectly good. And I also have a cat carrier too. And I'm like, I thought I'd given that away to somebody, but apparently not. So if anybody usually needs an animal carrier, this one's perfectly good. I hate putting it at the curb, because I can't seem to donate it anywhere. Just because a cat was in it at one time. And the same with that, So, yeah, or if you have need of a hooded litter box and you have a cat and you're in New Jersey and I can give it to you, this one, yeah, I like the hooded ones because then, I know some people have those really fancy ones now with the litter robot and stuff like that, and, but if you just still use a standard litter box, I still have one in the basement. But I'm just going through. I did find something really good because at one point I was doing something and burned a hole in my floor here. There's like this little round hole. Awesome cat lady. Oh yeah. Well, I was a cat. Yes, I still am very much a cat lady, but I haven't had cats in a few years now, precisely because I'm looking to move overseas, which is now what I'm working on. If you haven't joined in before, that was the message that I had gotten was, it's time to start mobilizing to, because I want to work on being a therapist over in the UK. So I'm planning that, and I want to find the right venue for me, because there's a lot of things. I do have a friend who's worked in mental health in the UK, and she was she's not super excited about the way that they do it there. Like I feel my part of the problem that I've often had with it, and I think Joanne can attest to this too, is that some of the problems I've had with counseling programs is that they tend to, they don't really, if the point of it is to help you work through your stuff, or to help you work through and come out on the other side, when you're going through hell, kind of keep going and get to the other side where you have the transformation. That a lot of times it seems that what they do in counseling it can be counterproductive to that. And it can be contrary to treating some of the things that people go through as somehow something abnormal. And that is something, when I've learned, I remember going to the Jung Institute years ago. I was thinking about signing on to become a Jungian therapist, but that is obscenely expensive. And that is not the kind of thing that is covered. Like, you already have to have a counseling degree to do that. I mean, I could have gotten away with a couple of courses, grad level courses in like adolescent psych and psychopharmacology and stuff like that. Like, they wanted you to have those courses. But the certification, it was 300 hours supervised. Yes, Joanne says, I know. 300 hours supervised and 300 hours of therapy that you had to pay for. And Jungian therapy is extremely expensive, and it's not covered by insurance because it's not one of those, it's not a quick fix mental health thing, and unfortunately that's the way insurance is. They don't want to pay for things. You'll notice, like, if you have an insurance plan, that maybe there's 6 to 8 weeks that you have of counseling if you are in a crisis. And then Alex says, I wish I would have known these things within my youth. So many rough experiences with therapy. Everything is abnormal, or was. Right, and that's my whole thing. Yep, on top of the 3,000 hours already done is what Joanne's saying. Yeah, right, and then you have to take your test to be certified, right? You have to do all of that. So all of this comes in, and I think I had estimated it was going to cost me about $60,000 out of pocket. And I know, Joanne, you said you've paid a lot more. I remember you giving me a price tag that's probably more than double that for all the education you've had. But it's a lot of money. The thing is, I have a background already, so the question is, what are the kind of certifications do I need? But I kind of would like to go into a program where I'm there, because I had people talking to me yesterday. Like, I had a friend yesterday going, we'll just try to find an online program here. I'm like, no, you're missing the point. The point is not to be here. The point is not to be here. I want to be doing it there, and then I want to be doing my practice there. I don't want to be doing it here. I don't want to take an online program. That's not where I want to go. Yep. Why I'm going non-clinical. Ultimately, I don't think I'm going to be somebody working in like an uber clinical setting either. But the thing is, there's certain type of things you can't do without that license. So right now, I'm kind of limited. I mean, I'm doing spiritual coaching, but I'm kind of limited in the level that I can do. I cannot call myself a therapist because I'm not. Really. And I don't try to represent myself as that to anybody. And there are times when sometimes I feel like, if I had the therapy background to kind of work with this, that would be super helpful. Although I feel like, I've taken so much master's level psych that I just feel like, I don't feel like I'm unhelpful, But there's times when I feel like having both would give me more flexibility in terms of the setting that I'm in. And, well, you can't diagnose and assess. Correct. That's right. I can't do that. My opinion is you're a bit better than the therapist I've met. Well, oh, thank you. Well, it's, yeah, I mean, because a lot of times in therapy, what happens is, I remember talking to the head of counseling over at FDU, and I don't think she's there anymore, but when she was there, you know, the way in which she told me when we would send students to the wellness center who were having breakdowns or were having problems, you know, they would come into the library. Thank you. This is a natural and much needed course for you, I think. Yeah, I feel like it's something I could have done when I worked at FDU because they had a master's in counseling, and I actually, as an employee, could have taken it for free. But at the time, something just kept telling me, no, this is not where you want to take it. And even though I think, and I mean, to be fair to FDU, I mean, they do actually have a very well received PhD in clinical psych. I mean, they do actually have a program that is considered to be, you know, a competitive program. But I could have done it there. I'm not sure about the PhD, but I could have done the other there for, you know, for free, as a, you know, as an employee. But no, I feel like I need to do it over there. And one of the things that precipitated this is I was looking through, because obviously if you want to emigrate, you either have to have a spouse and or you have to have a job. You know what I mean? You have to have something, you have to have something where you are, where somebody's offered you employment. Or you can have a student visa. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of old for a student visa. But I said, but if I was going to go back for this, and I'm looking at the list of jobs that they say what they need people for, and mental health is one of the things that they need in the UK. They said that they will grant visas from outside of the country for that. So I'm like, okay, then it's ideal to get into one of their programs and then seem to try to get placed from within with that. And so in a way, I almost want to do a longer psych program because then I'm there long enough to potentially apply for ILR, which is indefinite leave to remain. And at that point, if I can, you know, get somebody who knows my work there to employ me under that, you know, that legitimate visa, then I could stay there, do my work, do my therapy, do my hours, do whatever it is I have to do, or maybe even just get employed by somebody, and then hit the 5-year mark so that I can apply for permanent residency. So that's kind of the thought. Now, again, best laid plans, right? We don't know that it's totally going to work like that, but we'll see. So happy for me. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes. I mean, right now, I don't want to be like, I was talking to my sister the other day, and I'm like, please don't call mom and tell her I'm doing this because well, hurry up and do it so I can finish my hours under you. Well, okay. That would be, yeah, it would be, well, we'll see. It could take a few years, but it's, but we'll see how all of that goes, about, you know, with regard to, getting overseas. But this seems to be the course that they want me to take. And even though this is something I could have thought about before, the attitude seems to be, well, now's the time that you have to do it. Now's the time you need to look into this. And I don't know if it has to do with the political climate right now. And that was kind of something I was going to mention today because yesterday I had gotten, when I was doing Rouhani for somebody who's pretty unhappy with the election results, and a lot of people are. And I've already said my piece on that on the November 7th live stream, so I'm not going to repeat myself on that today because I think some people just don't want to talk about it anymore, and I don't blame them at all. But Azrael gave me a message this morning that was really interesting. He said something like, UK is newer to mental health versus America, what I'm told. Maybe it's that. It could be, yeah. I've known of people who have worked like in clinics like with psychotic people and so forth, and what she said, the way in which those people were handled, she just found was appalling. It's like, it was kind of like, it was a label that was slapped on them, and it was like they were automatically, like, nothing about their situation mattered. Like, whatever their backstory or their history, if they were displaying some kind of psychotic episode, the background that they came from, like, for example, if they came from a background of abuse, or if they came from that, they said that was irrelevant. You know, that was irrelevant. And and the way in which she felt like the people she was working with were talking about people who were in these wards, like condescending, like laughing at them for their different things. And it's like, that's not very humane. That's not very helpful. That's exactly one of the reasons I've stayed away from that kind of a thing, because I'm like, no, that's not what people need. You need to stop treating people who are that mentally ill like they're, like they're a joke. They're not. They're going through something, and sometimes it's been triggered by some very, very severe trauma that is just literally, they're just like, yeah, well, we don't care about that. And I'm not going to get into specifics because I don't want to talk about people's individual cases. But there's just some situations like that that I've seen. And the thing about the UK is I love the UK. But there does tend to be kind of a no-nonsense approach to everything, It's kind of a very neat, tidy, no-nonsense, non-emotional kind of approach to things. I'd messaged my online friend the other night about something that had come up about where I asked him. I said, how much do you rely on intuition for things, right? Or your gut instinct, or how much do you feel that you do that? And he said, well, I don't know. He said, not really at all. That's the program in Switzerland that's trying to change that I'm looking at. Yes, okay, yeah, and that was the thing I was going to ask you about. I'm not necessarily looking at the Switzerland thing, but I'm interested in that. That was the thing I was going to message you about, so I'll probably do that sometime today. But less about maybe that program, but more about like what your friend knows about some of the other programs, maybe in London and in places around that might be kind of on that track, because that's more what I'm looking for. I was talking to Karenna the other day up in Milford, and she was saying, yeah, she was looking at a psycho-spiritual kind of master's, which I think is kind of what we're looking for. We don't want something, you want something that's clinical and therapeutic, but something that's pulled that either a spiritual or a humane element into it, where it's maybe a little more holistic in its approach to things, rather than, yes, there is the diagnosis and the assessment, but not approaching it from, there just seems to be this kind of overly medicalized approach, to it. So I'm looking for something, but yeah, my friend had said that, and he said, well, I don't know. He says, I don't think I rely on my gut instinct for anything, really. He's like, I'm just all fact-based. And I was like, oh, well, that's unfortunate, but, obviously he seems happy enough that way, so, good for him. But I always feel that taking a strictly fact-based approach to things doesn't, it doesn't, when there's crisis, when things are not going according to plan, when things are outside of the norm, when things are being shaken up, or we have experienced things in life that are very deeply emotional. It's almost like if you're just going to be on that very stoical kind of track, then you don't have a framework for dealing with this other stuff. And that's why I always say it's very important to develop your intuitive side as well, because that's the thing. You need empathy and compassion. Yes. In fact, there's Drew had a whole degree on medical humanities, and I actually was working with a lot of medical humanities students. And that's really kind of the point of medical humanities, is the idea that not just the ethics of the medical profession, but the way in which you are to be approaching, when you're working with human beings who are in psychological distress, how are you helping them? And by being very cold and very clinical and simply slapping a label on them, like, well, gee, you're a freak, and, and I know a lot of people who don't get help because that's what they're afraid is going to happen to them. You're just going to be on a label, and you have a label, and you're going to be passed through the system, and you're just going to always be kind of viewed as this flawed person that has to be medicated, or that has to be. And I don't think that's not, psychology is a process. And it's interesting because Azrael's message this morning, when it came to a lot of people who are very angry right now, like what my friend was telling me was that there's a lot of people, she follows TikTok politics. I think she's the only person I know who does that. But there's, obviously there's a whole community there of younger people, Gen Z, millennials. And there's a tremendous amount of anger right now. especially anger towards men. There's anger towards, like, there's a lot that's going on, which is, I have said, is sort of contrary to the direction that we're going. Now, let me just read Joanne's comment. In my trauma studies, we are told it's case by case, and we have to be non-judgmental and empathetic. Yes, and exactly. And that's exactly what it should be, and that's always the way I've understood it's supposed to be. But unfortunately, in some cases, and again, this was what I was hearing about a lot in the UK, that's not the way it's been. There are some people, well, it's just kind of like you could have a medical doctor who's like that as well. Medical doctors can be, I mean, sometimes you have doctors who are very good technical doctors, but their people skills are terrible. And they come in and they have, you're suffering and they have no empathy for you whatsoever. It's just like, they're just like, yeah, whatever, take this prescription and go away. I mean, there's a lot of that. And when you need somebody to really consider your case, because cases are very, very complex. I'm wishing I can remember the book I read in grad school. I read it I took a course with a psychiatrist on basically the psychology of illness. And there was a really good book on medical residents that we read. And the way in which that one can study all the anatomy, physiology, and all of that kind of biological stuff. But that actually what one needs... But when one actually goes in and they start working as an intern, say in a hospital, on a ward, that diagnosing is more of an art than a science. The book was really about that, about the art of diagnosing, because it's not something that you can just, it's not something like everybody thinks you can run things through. You can take a bunch of tests and run things through a machine and boom, 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 you've checked all these boxes, so this is who you are. It's like, it doesn't really work like that. Diagnosis is often a lot more nuanced because there's a mental component, there's a physical component to it. For years, I only would go to holistic doctors because they were trained in Western medicine. I mean, they were trained the traditional way, but they were often also trained in homeopathy and in other things, and they gave you a choice as to what you wanted. They would consider both, and I would go for an appointment, and I would sit down, and we would be sitting for an hour, where they would be going over not only a medical history and what was going on, but okay, what's going on in your life? How's your marriage? How's this? How's that? And we would talk about stuff. And then there would be kind of a whole thing of like, okay, well, this can help you, this. I love homeopathy. Yeah. And a lot of people talk about it like, oh, it's a pseudoscience and so forth. But I'm like, no, people want to discredit anything that is natural medicine. And I'm sure that there are some aspects of natural medicine that maybe are not what they claim to be, but I have found that those methods have helped me more than traditional medicine. Traditional medicine, when I have gone on, traditional courses of things, have just screwed me up a lot of the time. So, and again, I'm not saying that people who benefit from that shouldn't do it, but I just feel personally for myself that I would rather stay away from that as much as possible. And not because I'm, anti this and anti-vax, and, I'm not anti-medicine, but you're correct to have to use them as a guide, or on possible, you have to use them as a guide on possible outcomes. Right, yeah, it's very much, let's see, mind, body, spirit is all connected. Well, exactly, right. But that's not the approach that medical science takes. When you're dealing with the sciences, anything that smacks of what they call teleology is something that they stay away from. And teleology says that there's a religious or spiritual component to it. Okay, and I don't think it necessarily has to be teleological, because teleological does imply some specific kind of religious thing, which I don't think, because again, the understanding of religion is just what we think of as organized religion. Or they think that everything else is just new age, woo-woo, or whatever. And it's like, no, there's a component. Like people, I don't want to practice a kind of medicine that's going to continue to suppress somebody's soul. Joanne says, so many disorders run parallel and present with similar symptoms. Right, exactly. It's very complicated. You can't, that's why they tell you to do things when you see people behaving in a certain way, to not just throw, say, the narcissist label around, or certain other things, because there could be other things that are going on. Like someone might have narcissistic tendencies, but that doesn't mean that they're a narcissist. Okay, for example. So you need to kind of look at the whole person, and that's why I've always felt that the coaching I do kind of works in tandem. If people are already in therapy, I often will say, well, if you're going to a therapist and that is helping you, I'm not going to tell you to stop doing that. but the work that I do might supplement that if you feel you're not getting that component from your therapy. Okay, so that's often the way that I have billed what I do, but it would be nice to be able to do both. And I'm building up the one practice, and then I feel like I'm kind of adding the other piece in later, but I have to see what's involved, and I do feel like it is going to involve me just getting out of here. But anyway, but the thing he had said to me, and okay, so he was talking about Azrael this morning. Yes, PTSD, narcissism. They love to throw the bipolar and borderline diagnosis for everything as a catch-all, right? Well, exactly. Those are like the hot ones that everybody mentions, and autism is also something that people will mention quite frequently and throw around, ADHD, stuff like that. When it's not always what's going on, or there's just not one flavor of it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of different things. So anyway, back to process. That was kind of the theme of today, is that Azrael was mentioning how much anger there was, because I did have somebody yesterday who was very, very we're talking about all this anger and rage that's out there right now. And when that person was having their Rahani session done, they said that they saw like literally hands coming together and actually heard the word forgiveness. And she was like, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know, that's really hard. I don't know. But Azrael said to me this morning, he says, yes, he says the anger that's being displayed right now is a terror. He says, but he said, you have to know that the process is this is part of the process. So in other words, yes, at the end of all of this, there's going to be a harmonious coming together. But when you have the explosion, you're still going to have the flames here. This is not going to be a neat and nice and neat thing where everybody just kind of, and he's saying it shouldn't be a nice and neat thing. He says there's going to be an explosion. There's going to be a pushback. He says because some of that is part of the process. Some of it is part of making people realize that there's, how this impacts people. This is kind of a very difficult thing because it's not just a race between, which guy do I like better or which person do I like better. There's a lot more at stake here with what's, you're already hearing about businesses saying, okay, we have to buy a year's worth of stock because now there's going to be a 20% tariff put on every import that we get. So if we don't buy it now, we're not going to be able to afford it and we're going to go out of business. Like that you're already hearing that. That's just on the economic side. And then of course there's a lot of other things too. So again, I don't want to derail into that, but that was the impetus and I didn't ask Azrael about it this morning. That was just his message for me first thing. He's like, yeah, there's all this anger right now. He's like, and understand that that's not where you want to end up. He says, but understand that this is part of the process. So okay, so that makes me think about what we are doing in terms of when we talk about therapy or when we talk about other things, or even people who are working with me right now and say, we're doing this and, why do I feel like I'm still in this stage? Or why do I feel like I'm stuck in this? Or why do I feel like I'm stuck in that? And it's because you're still in the process. You do a lot of work and you feel like so much has happened, but we're still not at the end of the process. Okay. So that's kind of the thing. You have to you have to understand the time factor here. And we don't like that because when we go, and again, to my point about going for therapy and insurance saying, all right, 6 sessions, you should be better now. No, it doesn't work like that. It's when you're dealing with things of the soul, there's often a lot to untangle and to unpack. Nothing ever ends with a nice, neat little, little bow tied on top. And Alex says, yes, exactly. I feel like I've done nothing, but in reality, a lot of work's been done. Right. And it was interesting because before the live stream, I pulled a essential oil card and I pulled lavender. And the message on this is interesting. It says, the keyword is balance. And it says, the trigger statement is no one understands me. The true statement is I ask for what I need. From a place of love, you need to stand up and speak your truth. Okay? What you wish for is what the universe wishes for you. Okay, so to the point of when people are upset, and again, it doesn't just have to be this situation. Anytime somebody displays anger we say, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. Don't feel that way. Don't be that way. No, you have to be that way. I said this last time I think I've mentioned this before, but I had a boyfriend years ago. This is probably like 15 years ago now, 15, 16 years ago. But when we broke up, it was under a situation where I felt very betrayed, and I was really angry about it. And a mutual friend said to me, "Oh, he's just an idiot. Like, don't be mad at him." And I said to her, "I'll be mad at him until I'm not." Okay. I mean, I'm at this stage, am I mad at him now? No, I don't care anymore. But it's just, but at the time I was mad, and I said, you have to be mad until you're not. And Joanne's saying we have become an instant gratification society. Yeah, because, right, we want to, when we're feeling, and especially when you're feeling pain or you're feeling stuck, you're like, okay, I want to get unstuck like right now. And it's understandable why we feel that way. But the reality is we're going through a process. And maybe that goes back to the Four of Cups we were talking about yesterday, in that we may not, that may be part of the dissatisfaction. We're not actually seeing, we're kind of looking at it with skepticism, or with our arms folded and going, I don't know, with great criticism, yeah, but, well, yeah, sure, true, there's these things, but, I'm still not where I want to be. But we don't acknowledge what we actually have done. And sometimes I think that's an aspect of the Four of Wands too. And it's funny because today's 11/11, and the Four of Wands has the 11/11 on it, right? In the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And so it's like the idea of where, how, turn around and look at how far you've come. And a lot of times we don't acknowledge that. We don't give ourselves credit. I have mornings where I wake up and I feel like, wow, I feel like I'm doing nothing with my life. But then if I go back and look, and I'm like, well, like you've written 5 books, you've done a doctorate, you've done this, you have a podcast, you're building, you have an audience, you're building things. You had a 27-year career, you've done some stuff. And again, it's not to just rest on your laurels and say, so, well, I did the stuff, so, that's it now. But not to kind of diminish or minimize the things you did just because right now you're in a different place and maybe it's not as comfortable as the place you were in, right? So you recognize that you've done stuff, right? And when it comes to working on our spiritual and mental health, there's a lot of progress we made. There's some people, I swear, there's just some people I work with when I hear where they've come from, and then they're kind of like, well, I don't understand why I'm not past all of this. And I'm thinking, do you see where you came from? I mean, the fact that you're here and that you are a functioning person, able to hold down a job, able to have a relationship, able to be self-reflective, able to work. I mean, speaks volumes about how strong you are. It speaks volumes. I mean, because where you came from, none of that should have, anybody could logically conclude that wouldn't happen. So I look at it, I'm just like, you're just an absolute miracle that you're here, and that you're here and that we're talking and that you have all the stable things that you have. And yes, you're not maybe feeling perfectly right now, but holy crud. I mean, when I look at it as an outsider, taking stock and looking around, right? What have I been through? And when you look at what you've been through and you think, well, damn, I've survived all that stuff. I've gotten through it. Now, we don't want to live our lives just surviving, right? But when you come to that point where you realize, you go, wow, I went through all that stuff, and just look where I am. I'm not, I'm still here. I'm still doing things. I'm still working. I still have, like I said, if you're in a relationship, I still have a relationship. You have these things and you kind of go, okay, pat yourself on the back. You've done things. And it shows that you are, in fact, capable. There are times when we get tired and we think, I'm not capable. I can't do this anymore. And maybe we are moving back to our little Mabel here, our little turtle. Maybe we're slowing down a little bit. But it's, but that's okay. Not everything's going to be at high intensity all the time. So our reading for today, our center card is going with the flow. Yeah, Ace of Cups, right? Going with the flow in an atmosphere of the Seven of Swords. The Seven of Swords has been coming up all over the place. And I'm seeing it in other readings too. I like to look at it as overcoming instead of surviving. Yeah, well, exactly. But the thing is, we don't want to be in fight or flight mode all the time, is what I mean. Because I think sometimes when we've overcome certain things, we can still be continually like the Nine of Wands guy, like looking around, being like, oh God, when's the other shoe going to drop and what's going to happen next? You know what I mean? Like, so that's, I think that's what I mean by that. But yeah, it is a type of overcoming, to be sure. But yeah, so inner feeling, we're feeling like something's not right, or there's something that we don't know. Okay. Generally speaking, or there's just some information that we have that's missing, and boom, chakalaka, and there we go. Oh my God, again, that's Seven of Swords. Yes, and again, I've seen it in other readers as well this whole week. The Seven of Swords has been coming up a lot. And the external feeling of which we are aware, yeah, King of Swords, control. We want the facts. We want to see things. We want to know. We want to make decisions. We want to know. And of course, we want to take control of particular situations. Not always not always unwarranted, but the question is, how do we take control when we feel we've been sabotaged, right? How do we take control? Or when we feel like, the bottom has fallen out of something, right? So this is interesting. We have the Chariot card, awareness. Okay. So again, there's an awareness that's dawning. It's almost like when we're in a space where everything feels cloudy, and again, I'm not just talking about what's going on collectively here, also just individually, when we're feeling like there's that space that that is cloudy, or that maybe something isn't quite right, or maybe we've been led down a wrong path, or maybe there's been something. I feel like the phrase that comes to mind is having the rug pulled out from under you. Like when you feel like you're in that kind of a state. This awareness card is basically saying, there's the Chariot again. You got it with you in another pull. Yes, I did. Right. I did another pull with you in that, and we had gotten this card. The Chariot is, well, first of all, it's about taking control, but this is also a card of awareness. I think it's not only coming to an awareness of what's going on around us, but an awareness of what's going on in like who we are. Like this is a card of this kind of phantom person, the real kind of Buddha or Shiva type figure in the middle, coming out. Okay, this is like recognizing who you really are. That's what you need to do, is recognize where that divine element is in you. Okay, recognizing what's there. And it's operating from that awareness where we are able to take the kind of control that we need, or to do the things that we need to do. And yeah, the outcome is, okay, there's your prompt. Here's the space in which you need to create. We have the King of Wands, and the King of Wands is the one who is determined to succeed. The King of Wands is ambitious. The King of Wands says, I have the power, I have the tools, I'm going to do it. Okay? And that seems to be what we're seeing right now. And so, and that's also strong Aries energy, by the way. So this to me is, even though it's a king and it represents kind of the end of a cycle, it's also the King of Wands. It's Aries energy. And I feel like we're told that we're moving into a space of creative energy. It's like almost we're moving out of this cycle and back into Aries energy, but we're moving in it with the knowledge of the king, right? We're moving back into it. We're moving away from this highly cerebral kind of a thing to one that's more inspired. So this is a time when you want to operate from that inner space, and you want to be inspired. Okay, you want to be inspired to to move forward. And I think we're all, regardless of how we feel about this current space and where we're at, I think all of us are being inspired. Like there's something with this astrology. There is a full moon in Capricorn coming up on Thursday that is a very, very powerful one, because it's interacting with Uranus and Taurus. There's like more, there's more surprises, it's like, but wait, there's more. What's behind door number 3? We're kind of in that space right now. We're kind of trying to figure out where are we going? Like what's happening? But there's a fire that's been lit, okay, for a lot of people. Again, regardless of where you stand on certain things, it just seems like we are all moving into a space now. Not a very comfortable space for a lot of people, but it is a space that's telling us, okay, this is gonna shake up your comfort zone. And now, and that was the conversation I was having with my friend yesterday. She was just kind of like, yeah, I just feel like all of a sudden, a lot of people's Pluto is now conjuncting their North Node. And so there's this attitude of, all right, it's time to shake it, shake it up, get up, do something, make that change, make that move you wanted to make, like do it. And I don't necessarily mean a literal move. It might mean that in my case, but it doesn't necessarily mean that in everybody's case. But it's just sort of this sense of, we need to, this is what we need to do. We need to, where basically there's, the fuse has been lit, and now it's just kind of like, okay, when things blow up, it's like, okay, where are we going to end up at the end of this? But there is, with that Ace of Cups in the center, we're still in this period of kind of, we're at the beginning of something, and we kind of have to flow with what's going on. It's like you're on the river and you've hit the rapids, right? You've hit, so you have to kind of navigate your way across that before we get to the smoother part of the river. Billy Joel, we didn't start the fire. Oh yeah, well exactly. But there's a fire, there's a fire nonetheless. And it's like, how do we work with that? I pulled a couple of more of these because I like these cards a lot. So our first card is the Repellent card. The keyword is shielded. The trigger statement is I am under attack. The true statement is I am strong. You will clearly see what you are taking on from outside influences and release. Your energetic boundaries are fortified. Okay, so that's card number 1. And number 2 is the cedarwood oil card. And it says connection. The keyword is it's too much. The true statement is I am grounded in my body. Use your empathetic abilities to connect with others. Discern information you receive and do not take on what is not your own. Right. That's another thing too. Right now there's the general environment is very, very heated. So it's almost like we have to do things to protect our energetic boundaries, protect who we are, and stay focused on who we are, and not let the collective make us feel too weighted down. And right now, I think a lot of people do feel weighted down by the collective, but we're definitely being told to move and to recognize these things, but also speak up for what you need. That was one of the first cards. That was the lavender oil card. Speak up for what you need, because this is definitely, there's a lot of action. We're getting that fire energy. This is a time of action. What that action is going to be for each of us is going to be different. I think a lot of us, that was a conversation I had yesterday too. Like there's this sense of comfort of like, okay, especially again, I said this the other day, those of us who are at a certain age or at a certain stage in our lives where we kind of feel like, all right, I'm tired. I've put my work in. I'm tired. I would like to go take my vacation now or my holiday. I would like to get away from all this. But it's almost like, no, there's more work to be done right now. We have to, it's more about how do we integrate that into our lives? How do we find play? How do we integrate that into our lives so that our day-to-day lives are not like that? But sometimes, but especially with this outgoing Capricorn energy, it's like, no, there's work to be completed. Once that work is completed, then we see where things are going. But we may be taken to task on things that we have not finished right now. So anyway, that's it for me today. We're at 7:46 on my phone. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you got something out of this today. I hope it was interesting. And so if you're in the ISFM, you're going to hear from me today. You'll get an email from me today, so look out for that. You're welcome. Thank you very much. And maybe I'll see you at noon as well if you're around. Thank you, everybody. Yep. And so I'm going to be doing a bunch of cleanup. Can't do my leaves today because it's wet. Oh well. Thank you, and thank you all. Yep. And so I will. You'll hear more from me later today, and of course I'll be back on tomorrow morning for our next morning coffee. So all of you have a great start to your week, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.